Reds podcast. Here are your hosts, Ricky Logan and Roger Straz.
Welcome to the Red Hot Reds, a Cincinnati Reds podcast hosted by myself, Roger Strauss, and not tonight, Ricky Logan. We have our super sub, our favorite sub host here, Mr. Austin Layton, hosting the show tonight. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on. Good to be on. I think I've done this twice now, and like both times after the intro, it's like, hey, here's Ricky and Roger. Then the first time you were out, and then now Ricky's out. So like, I'm sorry for the anticlimactic appearances for the people in the audience or whatever. But good to be on. Good to be talking some Reds baseball. But it'll be a good show.
Yeah, I appreciate you came here in a pinch. I know it was kind of late notice, but we really appreciate you coming on to give your insight and expertise. Also, I forgot you're also a co-host there on Chatterbox Reds as well for Chatterbox Sports. So shout out to you doing Reds 2 days in a row, maybe tomorrow as well if you're if you're available, possibly for Chatterbox or whomever needs you. But it's good to come utility. On. Yeah, you're the Garrett Hampson. Oh, sorry, you're the Edwin Arroyo of our. All
right, that's fair. Yeah, or Spencer Steer. You know, don't put too much disrespect on. I'm just kidding.
yeah, fair. But yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, especially after a win. It's good. It feels good to salvage the week, 3-3 this week. Not necessarily the greatest performances this week, but we got it done. We didn't have a losing week. We had a winning week last week, 3-2. Thankfully, they rained out that game against St. Louis, so that we got the last week of the year last week of this month, 6 wins of the 10 for the month. So that's I don't know what that says about the Reds or anything like that, but we'll get into that after we launch into these sponsors. frostbuddy.com/redhotreds. They've been with us for a bit. They have these tumblers that Ricky has gotten it, and my wife, spoiler alert, got something for me for Father's Day from Frostbuddy. They keep your drinks cool for up to 12 hours and keep your drinks hot for up to 6. So it's really versatile also in the different types of bottles that you can put in there, from the stubby bottles to the 12-ounce cans to everything in between. So really like Frostbuddy. Check them out. They got the URL in the corner. Go to frostbuddy.com/redhotreds. That kicks back a little bit percentage to us. Helps them, helps us, all that good stuff. So really appreciate them. Want to also go and shout out our All Gloves Off podcast network. It has us. It has Cheap Pop Society, Fans Boys Unleashed, Football with Cheese, Lights Out podcast. And also, we are trying to add some more. So if there's anybody interested in becoming a part of our podcast network, reach out to us anytime. Mike behind the scenes does all that good stuff. So we're really appreciative of him. And we also have a giveaway tickets coming up. I'm going to throw this up here. The Eugenio Suarez bobblehead giveaway. We have 2 tickets to this game on Wednesday, June 24th. To enter this ticket giveaway, you just have to show that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, a little screenshot there. It could be, if you're just new, please subscribe, show your screenshot. Or if you've been with us since the start, you can screenshot your YouTube page that shows that you're subscribed and send that to us as well to enter. You don't have to be a new person to our program to be able to enter. If you have been with us, you are just as entitled to this ticket giveaway as anyone else. So please do that. Send it to us. You can send it to our X page as a screenshot replying to the post, and we'll try to repost that post as well, retweet that post, whatever we call it nowadays. You also send it to our Instagram, I think as DM, and also you can send it to our Facebook page, reply in the comments with that screenshot. So that will get you entered, and that will hopefully give you a chance to see Eugenio hit a home run on his bobblehead day, which is always special. I don't know if you know this, Austin, that last year, Ricky and I went to the August 12th Elly bobblehead day against the Pirates and hit a grand slam on his bobblehead day, which was really nice. I hit it from the right side, which, was, I guess, a little bit of foreshadowing that he's going to be now starting to hit with power on that right side like he has this year.
You guys got to go to this game, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but getting into Elly, the news of the day, of the week, probably, hopefully, will be good news after a while. But the news right now is that Elly is injured, or at least he's going to get checked out on his injury. He came out of the game, was that in the 4th or 5th inning today? Kind of pulled up at first base after hitting a ball in the gap, which normally probably would have been extra bases, double at least for Mr. Elly De La Cruz, but it did not look good because Elly isn't a guy that comes out of games. He played a whole month last year with a partially torn quad. What were your first initial thoughts, Austin, when you saw it and you saw the news and you heard the press conference after?
Yeah, definitely concerned. I mean, I'm sure as every Reds fan probably is and was. It's interesting because when you see like a hamstring injury, when he's walking on it, it just doesn't seem like maybe it's as severe as it could have been. So we're kind of knocking on wood on that one, and some of the post game comments, obviously, as well, maybe supported that it's not super serious. I was thinking back to Emilio Pagan, in the Chicago series, when he pulled his hamstring or strained it or whatever it was, going to the ground and obviously in some visible pain. That is like polar opposite of Elly. Like Ellie's just kind of standing there on first base. You could tell it kind of bothered him, but not enough to be like wincing or fall over or anything like that. So I think that is at least a good sign. I'm not a medical professional by any means, but I don't know. It's concerning because you kind of hit on it. I think he's got like a 277 game streak or something that he's played, and that's great. I could care less about that record or streak or whatever you want to call it. It's obviously great that he's been available and been able to play in so many games. But so I don't know. I think I wouldn't be shocked if he misses some time, maybe at a minimal, certainly like a couple games just to rest and not be running on it. But it could be, worse than that. It could be a month or, more than that. So we just don't know at this point. I think as we're talking Sunday night, I had to check what day it was for a second, which is a bad sign. I guess the news is that he's going to get a scan tomorrow morning, Monday morning at 9 a.m. And we'll know more after that. But at least I don't know. So far for me, I'm not super concerned yet, but I'm not ready to be like optimistic about it yet. It's kind of a wait and see approach, I guess. But are you in the same boat? Or are you more concerned or less, I guess?
I'm a bit more concerned, I would say. It is a wait and see, that 9 a.m. appointment, whoever that MRI specialist doctor is going to have an interesting patient to come in there and see Mr. Elly De La Cruz on the docket and have to make sure that, he doesn't mess up all the hopes and dreams of Cincinnati Reds fans across the tri-state. But anyway, I'm a little bit more concerned because I don't know. So there was this whole thing, not to go too far back, that Elly had spent like a whole summer and more trying to learn English to try to make sure he can be understood in the language of United States baseball, right? And all of a sudden, he's got in this post game, right in front of his locker, he's got the translator they used to have when this is a different translator. This is the guy that's the medical staff, right?
Yeah, Tomas Vera, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tomas. Yeah, that's it. Now he's got the translator there. And usually, I get it. I'm not trying to say that this is like a huge red flag. It's mostly in the sense that he does not want to say anything wrong to the media, that the media will then go to the papers. And now they're getting all their clicks Sunday night, Monday night. They're still going to probably get their clicks because of all the fact this is kind of a big story in the Cincinnati area because he's such a superstar that, like you said, doesn't miss games. Like he literally kept his streak alive. We talked about a little bit pre-show because of his sister passing last summer. He got on a plane, maybe out of his own pocket, to get on a plane to get back of a delayed game, I believe, that got extended into the next day, and hit a pinch hit appearance there at the end of that game. I think it was against the Giants, if I'm thinking right. But anyway, point being is that Elly is not a guy that wants to miss, even if he's got a partially torn quad, even if he's 75-50% of himself, which could be better than a lot of players in this organization. Frankly, I'm more concerned because he's being extra careful, having a translator there, not speaking in English, which he's done so many press conferences in English, since he learned it last summer or 2 summers ago, whatever it was. It's a bit concerning there because it's like, okay, I don't want to screw this up. I know I've got, the agent who should not be named as my agent, who's going to try to make sure I make billions and billions of dollars after I'm off of my 6 years control with the Cincinnati Redlegs or what have you. I don't know. It's very interesting that he chose to do that. I don't know if maybe that's something that the PR told him that he had to do, right? Like let's not mess this up more than it is. You look like you got hurt. Let's speak in your normal language so that way what you're saying is your thoughts and not maybe a misspeak or a translation from in his head to out his mouth. I don't know. It's a bit more concerning just on that front. I don't think it's anything really, because like you said, the Pagan injury, you knew right away. It was like a no doubter, right? Like he was just on the ground writhing, got the card out, let's go. But also Pagan's like 11 years older than Elly. So, which is I guess still a benefit to Elly, because he will recover sooner than say like Pagan. So there's that. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe he misses 3 games and then he's back in the weekend series. Fingers crossed. Anything more than that, a lot of people are going to be wondering what the Reds are going to do next.
Yeah, that I kind of took the translator part, the similar way that you did, and maybe they just didn't want it to be something where he messes up what he says, just thinking the wrong words and things like that, and able to give more of a thorough answer, or accurate, I guess, because like I to give him total credit, like in the opposite way, I took like 2 years of Spanish in high school, and like I definitely couldn't do like interviews how he's doing in English like so quick, like I'd be awful. But he's usually actually like, I feel like he gives good responses in English. He's not, super thorough or anything. Obviously, like it's the second language or whatever. But I kind of took it as they're probably just trying to do not necessarily damage control, but just prevent, I guess, kind of further, misunderstandings and things like that. But something I didn't think about that you kind of touched on there was Elly, coming out of last season, the talk was, well, he played injured for like half the season or whatever it was. And that impacted, his speed, his stolen bases, that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this, like depending on the severity, obviously. But and I don't even know if I necessarily have an opinion either way yet of what he should try to push through. But it'll be interesting to see like what he's able to do and whether he's playing where he shouldn't have been, or I'm sure that'll be a topic of discussion, kind of regardless of how it plays out. But that's just an interesting thing that I didn't initially think about at the time, or before prepping for the show today. But it'll be interesting to see how they just play that out, because, I don't know if we're ever going to see the Elly from a couple years ago where he's stealing every base he could, at every opportunity. But speed's obviously a huge part of his game. So you're hoping that they don't, try to get him back too early just to keep this team in it. And, it ends up costing them in August or September or something. But it's definitely not, great when you're talking about your pretty much star of the team. And I think most people would say he's the star of the team. Dealing with an injury to the legs, especially, but we'll see.
Yeah, there was a tweet out there saying that he had kind of slowed down in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if that's related. Maybe he's not getting opportunities to steal or anything like that. But at the same time, today, he went first to home on a JJ Bleday double. So, like, he's still got, wheels. He might not be, like you said, employing his services to steal every time he gets the chance under the, the David Bell chaos ball era of his career. He's now kind of been pulled back a bit by Tito, because Tito's we're not going to give outs away. We're going to run prevent. We're not going to try to give the game to the opponent by making base running mistakes, by making errors, stuff like that. So, and that we've seen a lot of strides with Elly in that, in that department, where he's not giving away outs. He's not throwing the ball into the first row of, over the first baseman's head or whatever, as much as we've seen in seasons past. So there's that. I don't know exactly what this 9 a.m. What's the best case scenario? Like, because here's the thing, like, let's say he goes through the MRI, nothing's torn, just tightness, nothing mechanically wrong with his body. But then that means he could possibly play that day, the next day, what have you. I don't know I don't know if I'm asking this out to the universe or asking yourself. But like, I feel like the best case scenario might be like, maybe he needs a little rest. Maybe he needs to take a week off. Not anything worse than that. Just because Elly is such a guy that will play through injury, play through something, and maybe that could hurt this team this week. They lose a game because he's not able to get first to third or whatever. He can't extend a single into a double like he's known to do in the past. I don't know. What would you think is best case scenario after this MRI tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, best case, I guess, is kind of what we know now. I guess it's just, tightness, soreness, whatever, nothing, that needs surgery, obviously, or anything, similar to that. But yeah, I mean, I think even if that's the case and that's kind of the diagnosis or whatever, like, I'm cool with him missing a couple games. I think they have an off day coming up again on Thursday. So even if like worst case he doesn't play until this coming weekend, like that would still probably be pretty quick. Just for my comfort level, I guess. You obviously don't want him to miss like a lot of time in the lineup, regardless. But I think going back to like his consecutive games played streak like that, I'm cool if like they want to rest him tomorrow. Like even if it's good news, like I don't see any reason to rush it back and just give him like a couple days to see how he feels and obviously heal a little bit, every day in that process. But that's probably the best scenario, I guess. But I don't know. I think, I could see him at least sitting like the next 2 games in that scenario for sure, and it making sense to me, I guess.
Yeah, they might have to make him sit. Like this might be a scenario
Yeah.
where he might, you know what I mean? Like it's a bit kind of like the Spencer Steer running into the wall, I guess, mid-June 2024 and being hurt until June 2025 kind of thing, where he just kept playing through it. We're going to see Elly at DH, so he doesn't have to expend that energy at shortstop, maybe is my thought at game 2. I think they probably send him 1 game if it's a clean MRI is my guess. And they're going to have to make him sit, which if that's the case, if he is still on the 40-man roster, he's not on the IL, what does that say for Mr. Edwin Arroyo? Like that seemed to be, I think the article Ricky put out like immediately after they saw after he saw that Elly got hurt is that, hey, what does this mean for Edwin Arroyo? Is he coming up? I know we talked about a little bit before the show that he was resting today. He wasn't playing today after playing 5 of the 6 days this week for the Louisville Bats. What does this injury potentially mean for Mr. Edwin Arroyo?
Yeah, I think it simplifies it in that regard if Elly does go on the IL because you have to make kind of a corresponding move in that scenario. But yeah, if it's just soreness, we're going to have him on the bench. Like I think we're probably going to see a lot of what we saw towards the end of today's game where they got Matt McLean or somebody else in there at shortstop, and they kind of just make do with the guys that they have. So I don't know. I think if it's just a situation where Elly's currently staying on the team, then I don't know necessarily that we see Edwin Arroyo. I think they should call him up, just based on his performance, sooner rather than later. But I just don't know if they will in that scenario because they're probably, even though they've been giving McLean some time off in this past, basically week, it seems like, sitting on the bench, not playing, coming off the bench and, pinch hit roles type of thing. I don't know. I see him kind of just slotting in as probably the majority of time at shortstop. But yeah, I don't know. I think if they can call Edwin Arroyo up still, I mean, I think they do need to at least figure out a way to get him on the team, and heck, even Noel Marte sooner rather than later too. But that's a separate discussion, I guess.
Yeah. The Noel Marte one is a, I don't know. It's not easy. I can't say easier. It may be a little bit more amenable because there's 3 off-field spots. He has been playing center field a bunch and had a nice catch for the Bats the other day, or maybe it was 2 days ago, and center. So Noel Marte could also be a part of this club because he doesn't have to possibly play every single day to be in a decent rhythm for the Cincinnati Reds. With Arroyo, I feel like if he's coming up, major league debut, he's not going to be sitting behind McLean. He's not going to be sitting behind, even like Sal Stewart, third base, or Gino at third base. It's got to be a situation where you're either Elly's out for a week and needs to possibly find a replacement shortstop, whether that's McLean sliding over and then Arroyo can play second as well. That could be the solution, but I don't know if the temporary solution of like, say, 7-day or 14-day IL is good to bring Arroyo up. It feels like if he's kind of come up, kind of like the Elly, the 2023, McLean coming up 2023, those guys came up and stayed up. They didn't have a situation where it was, oh yeah, we're going to come up, and then a week later, send you right back down. That could kill a player's confidence, for one. That could just, send a kind of mixed message like, hey, you want me, but you don't have a spot for me. So what are you doing? Like, if anything, I'll just stay in Louisville, maybe is the thought process. And instead of kind of being toyed with, like, yeah, we'll have you debut, but then 7 days later, now we got to send you back down. So I don't know. It feels like a tough spot because everyone sees what Edwin Arroyo is doing down there at Triple-A. Like the highlights are great. His power stats are great as well. Like he's he's coming off that 2024 shoulders tear or surgery that took him out the whole year. 2024, 25 was a mid average, kind of year. Still hit pretty decently, but now he's back. Like he's fully back, which is encouraging that he is such a highly touted prospect. When they traded, I think he was in the I want to say either Luis Castillo trade or the Gino, or no, not that one. I think it might have been that one with Seattle. So he's like a big deal prospect over there in the Seattle system before he came over here. So anyway, the point being is that he needs to play every single day somewhere, so that way he can continue to build on that success. And being in Louisville might be the best spot. I don't know if necessarily coming up to this team right now, the way it's set up, I don't know. I don't know if it works for him right now.
Yeah, I would like to see him get consistent at bats too. And I guess I got to remember too, like I was pushing for Arroyo to come up for the second base slot even before the Elly stuff, started, right? Like I think, Steer can be serviceable there. Obviously Sal can too. But that was kind of the goal, I guess, even 48 hours ago or whatever, like bring him up, put him at second base. And you don't have to really worry about shortstop because, we got Elly, but at that time. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting if maybe they do kind of shuffle him around, talking about the super utility role earlier. But, if they put him at second, third, short, like maybe, I don't know. I don't think they DH him, but maybe if they want to get him some at-bats, you can kind of keep him fresh that way. But, yeah, I think it would be tough to have him come up and start like, half the time that he's up here and then send him right back down. And maybe he doesn't have, fire in those games that we like to see. But yeah, I don't know. I think we'll have a much probably easier decision, I guess, tomorrow at 9:01, or I guess it might be like a 1-minute scan. So probably like 10 a.m. tomorrow, I guess. But
yeah.
We'll learn more at that point.
Oh yeah, I wonder how many of the Reds beat writers are going to be right outside that Beacon Orthopedic.
Yeah, Charlie Goldsmith.
Waiting to tweet out whatever may come that way. It's going to be an interesting morning, and hopefully good news. I suppose we'll find out all together tomorrow. But even though that was kind of the bad news of the day, the Reds did have a bit of a high note today. Like we talked about, they finished the week on a win. They finished on a week salvaging the week series, going 3 for 3, not going out on a 2 for 4 type of week, a losing week. So it was difficult because we kind of knew going into the Brave series that they were going to be really a big test. They have the best record in baseball. They also, I think, had the best road record in baseball. And they got a guy by, I don't know if you heard of this guy, Ronald Acuna Jr., who can hit home runs just at will, it would appear. Not necessarily maybe the best defensive outfielder out there, but I think his offense might make up for that. But the Reds, they were going into this series needing at least one win because they kind of have a little bit of a stinker the last game of the New York Mets series, and we'll get in that in a second. But Austin, what was your main takeaways for overall the Atlanta Braves series and going out on a win today?
Yeah, it's good to end it on a win. I thought they had a chance to get swept, and that would have really stunk and be a totally different vibe coming out of the series, obviously. But I think you touched on it too. Like the Braves are just really dang good, and like I figured that coming in that like the odds of them, winning the series or sweeping the Braves or something like that's kind of just out of the realm of possibility, unfortunately. So I think all in all, like the way I was looking at it too yesterday after doing the game show on Chatterbox is like, I kind of use these games against, these Braves and whoever else, top teams that like, it's kind of a good barometer of like where the Reds are at. And like, unfortunately 1 out of 3, you don't want that to be, how we compare to those type of teams, but I think it's just kind of the reality at this point. But it stinks too, because I think if Reds fans had their way, like the starters that we threw out there against the Mets would be the guys that we'd prefer to have against the Braves, Chase Burns, Abbott, whatnot. So I think, that didn't really put them in a great spot from the start, just literally pun intended, I guess, starting pitching. But it would have been, I think, a little bit different. I don't know if we necessarily would have won the series, but I don't think, they necessarily got our best with kind of the guys that we rolled out there. But to your point, I mean, Acuna just insane, like home run every day of the series, right? It's like, how do you even combat that? And I was so tired of seeing his home run trots. I'm glad this series is over. I'm not sure how he doesn't get thrown at more doing that stuff like that. But that's my perspective, I guess. But I don't know. He's and especially after I guess he had a pretty slow start from what I was seeing too. I haven't followed the Braves as much, but hey, he must be feeling good now. Or at least sees our pitching well. But it was a tough series, I think, overall. But yeah, good to end on a win.
Yeah, absolutely. It would definitely be a different tone if we came into this show going out in a sweep after kind of, would it be a 4-game losing streak, which would just be another kick in the, what? So that's definitely a little bit of uptick, a little bit of showing of that 2025 Reds mentality where they didn't get swept for until the month of August. I don't know if you know this also, Austin. September is going to be kind of a rough gauntlet for these Redlegs. They got to face these Braves again in September. I believe that's going to be in Atlanta, so that's going to make it even more daunting. They got to play the Dodgers twice that month, the Cubs, Brewers. I want to say then they finish out in the Toronto Blue Jays, the World Series runner-up. So, so this is just like a barometer test, just like the whole month of September is going to be as well. I think the Reds – it's tough to really get a real good sense of this is going to be what the team is, because we saw how well they could play in April. And I wonder if we played the Braves in April, if we would have won 2 out of 3 in that game, in that series. I mean, so I'm not saying that the Braves caught us at a rough time, but our month was not great. I mean, I had mentioned a little bit earlier that this was the 10th win of the month, going 10 and 17, I believe, because we had finished the month 20-11 after the month of April. So we won at least 10 games this month, which is great. It sounds a lot better than 9-18, which again, if you can remember back in the month of May 2024, in that horrible stretch where they had the CES injury, they had a bunch of guys that were just out there, and it was like a West Coast trip where they won 1 out of 11 games. It was just bad. They had, I think, Stuart Fairchild in the 3-hole for a bunch of those games, playing center and everything. So it was a weird time to be a Reds fan, and that was a bad month. So I guess it's a little bit of a salvage that they had 10 and 17 this time around, because 9 and 18 month, I don't know. It just would immediately, and it still kind of makes me think of that May 2024 month. Now let's hope that they can right the ship for the month of June. They've got, this next series against the Royals right away. That will be hopefully a good way to kind of gauge, because the Royals haven't been playing that well. They're going to be at home, and then they have another division opponent against St. Louis. So we're going to get, I guess, a sense a little bit more. I don't know if, winning 1 out of 3 of the Braves is commendable because of how great the Braves have been playing, how great Acuna has been playing. I mean, we didn't even get to see Chris Sale this time around. We got to see Spencer Strider, which is good. I think Chris Sale was supposed to, but they pushed his start back. I think they get maybe a C. It's a passing grade, but it's not anything. There's no high marks. There's nobody that, except for maybe a guy that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, that had a pretty good series and a pretty good week. Other than that, there were not really too many high marks from this team against the Braves. A little bit better in the New York series, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I guess, I don't know. Does it seem like we can compete with Atlanta Braves team? Even with all the injuries with our bullpen, even with all the up and down starting pitching that we've had this month, do you think that's, is it feasible that when we see them again in September, that'll be a better matchup?
I think so. I mean, it's baseball is such a weird sport too, to judge on even a 3-game series, but you got to figure out we could at least be competitive. I think, unfortunately, the Reds are in a position where they kind of need everything to go right to be able to compete with these bigger teams. And, ideally you got a healthy Hunter Green in that series. And, Nick Lodolo is still pitching like he has been in the past 2 games, I guess. And Andrew Abbott's, on his game. So it's one of those scenarios where you need Sal to be hot, Elly to be healthy and hot, and then, get some kind of the sub guys, even Nate Lowe or somebody to contribute in those type of games. So I think it's definitely possible. It's just, I think the Braves just have a much deeper at this point team than we do, at least on a consistent basis. And that showed itself, I think, in the 3-game series. I kind of felt like we were a little overmatched those first 2 games, especially in losses. But even today, it's like you almost felt like at any point, especially in the 9th inning, like the Braves could have come back and like easily won that game too. So you never felt like super confident, at least I never did. But I think, they showed that they can at least go to bat with these guys.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the confidence level was pretty low this series, even compared to just when they played against the Mets. It was a little bit different confidence level, maybe because of the difference in the quality of the teams. It definitely, yeah, the bullpen, and we will talk about the bullpen a little bit, could have given the game away. And I can't believe that we're talking about Sam Moll being one of the more reliable, consistent bullpen arms that we have in the bullpen right now. With this being May 31st in 2026, that's kind of mind blowing. And just think about that, knowing the story of Sam Moll. But we know that this was kind of going to be a year that he had to prove it, and he's doing it. And we'll get into more of that later. But yeah, do you have any other takeaways or thoughts from the Braves before we move on to the Mets?
I did want to give, I guess, a shout or a note at least to Lodolo pitching deep in basically this game today and then the Mets series as well. I know we're going to touch on that, but I think it's really been back-to-back starts for him that he's shown. He's able to go deep in games and even throw the ball pretty well in doing so too. So that's a really good sign, I think, for this team. I know a lot of people, especially when all the blister stuff was going on, are kind of on the rocks about Nick Lodolo, but I think at least in these past 2 games, like you got to be pretty happy with what you saw, and hopefully it continues. Especially, I think he threw like 99 pitches today, or at least in the 90s. And the blister's holding out well, the fingers holding out well. So like that's just icing on the cake. But yeah, I think that was kind of the highlight, at least for me today. And they ended up having to get into the bullpen a little bit. I know we'll talk about that later too. But I think if you can get kind of solid starts where you can kind of limit, at least at this point, the bullpen's impact on a game, it definitely can go a long way.
Yeah. I believe it says 100 pitches thrown. He got 2 wins this week, right? Like he won in the Mets game on Tuesday or Monday, something like that, earlier in the week, and then he won today. So hey, maybe a Player of the Week nomination there. I guess I overlooked Nick Lodolo this week a bit because I thought he was kind of same old Nick Lodolo, kind of struggling to get his stuff over. But yeah, he gave up the 2 home runs though today, which was a bit concerning and kept kind of the Braves in it. But luckily the bullpen held it down enough to get the win. So yeah, shout out Nick Lodolo. We'll be moving on to the Queen City is better than New York Queens, New York. And that was Ricky. That was not me. So I don't give me any credit for that wordplay. He's the writer on the show, obviously. So, but yeah, the Queen City Cincinnati Reds went into New York, and see, this could have gone a couple ways. Like if the Reds had swept the Mets, then I would have been totally fine with them getting swept by the Braves, kind of thing. but that kind of didn't go there. It felt like the Reds had a great chance to sweep this team, who is like 9 or 10 games under 500 when they came into this series, and the Mets had, like, I think earlier in the year, what was it, like a 14-game losing streak. Like they're hurting, to say the least, as a franchise, especially after they got eliminated last year on the last day of the season against the Marlins. That allowed us, the Cincinnati Reds, to participate in the Fall Classic, the playoffs against the hated Dodgers. But we won't get into those old wounds. But yeah, the New York series went pretty well. 2 out of 3. Some good performances from some guys. But overall, they could have, would have, should have maybe swept. That last game was a bit very Cincinnati Redsy, leaving guys on base, leaving guys, with like, bases loaded, all the kind of stuff that you see with this kind of the offense can get really constipated, to say the least. But overall, what were your thoughts on the Mets series?
Yeah, it was going off, I guess, of what I was saying about the Brave series kind of being a barometer. When you face a team that's in a sub 500 like the Mets, like you definitely want to win the series. Sweeping it would be great, obviously, but the fact that they took 2 out of 3, like I was pretty cool with that. You can't expect to always just go out and sweep people, especially in baseball. But I think it was really a good series. Like you got good starting pitching. Chase Burns was doing Chase Burns stuff. Abbott, I think, had a really good start too. So I think it kind of showed, some strengths there, and it seemed like they were getting contributions. It's all blurred together for me now, but I think they got pretty good contributions from like Stevenson had a couple decent hits, even Lowe I think had a couple decent hits in that series too. So you got kind of contributions from a lot of guys, and I think uh, it would have been the Tuesday game that they won. Santillan closed it out and really didn't struggle kind of as he has, before and after that a little bit. So there was a lot of bright spots, I think, in that series. But yeah, to your point, you're facing the Mets, who, a lot of teams have had good series against, despite their payroll and having Soto and whatnot. I think we avoided him in the first game of that series, if I remember right, at least. But I think there's still going to be. I don't know. I don't see them, I guess, being terrible the rest of the season. But I think we probably caught them at least at a right time. Just a bunch of injuries. It seemed like they had to, and at least the Reds were able to go on the road and kind of take the series. That was my thoughts at it. I don't know if you had any others that I missed there at least, or overall thoughts.
No, yeah, overall, it feels like, at least for this Reds offense, that winning 7-2 is like winning like 14-2. Like it feels like when they get enough offense, they, in theory, because they the strongest part of their ball club last year was pitching, and at any time they probably got 7 runs. They were probably guaranteed to win last season. This season's been a little bit of a different story. They get 7 runs, and their bullpen can get shaky, or their starting pitching can get a little bit shaky, and that 7 runs doesn't feel like big a lead as it should be, right? But this series felt like it was. It felt like they were getting timely hitting. They were getting some nice contributions, like I said, from different guys. Like Spencer Steer had a 3-run, I think, double or single that cleared the bases, and then the JJ Bleday on the Monday game had a home run, and he's been just tearing it up of late. Like he's just been, I guess if you really want to go that far, like he's been like the best signing that Krall has had for at least a couple seasons now, because he's immediately made an impact. And I mean, it kind of seems kind of silly in retrospect that he started the year in Triple-A and killed it there and deserved the call up in late April for this Red Legs team. But despite the 10-17 record this month, the one real shining guy consistently, aside from Chase Burns, has been JJ Bleday. And like, even today he was having some timely hitting against Spencer Strider, a guy that is pretty strong starting pitching for the Braves. And I don't know, it's nice to see that the bullpen did not blow any leads this series, because they have against lesser teams. It feels like they let lesser teams in with confidence, stuff like that. They nearly did it today with the Braves, letting them in the game and nearly having to go to Sam Moll to get the 27th out is just, I don't know. That's a sentence in 2026 we're saying. But anyway, Burns on the game 2, he didn't go as deep as he usually has, which I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get into the Chase Burns innings restriction thing, soon. I don't know. There had been kind of rumblings about it. We know for sure that Terry Francona is not a guy that's beholden completely to the analytics of modern day baseball. And like last year, Mr. Andrew Abbott was going into the 8th or 9th inning, and it was only a 1-0 lead, I believe, against the Cleveland Guardians. And he kept him in the game and got the, complete game shutout, when I think Ricky and I joked that probably Andrew Abbott, if he was playing for David Bell, would have got pulled in the 5th in that game for some sort of analytical reason, third guy through the lineup type stuff, so like seeing Burns go 5 1/3 and 8 strikeouts seemed like that's kind of his kind of outing. And if we can get that every single time, great. 6 innings, 7 innings, even better. That's gravy on top. But I'm not sure exactly how they're going to manage him going, into this next month, his 3rd full month as a starter.
Yeah, I think to that point of, even if he is like rolling in a game where he has, 70, 80 pitches, but, he's already in the 6th or 7th inning, it's like, I don't know. I'd be almost okay with them pulling him just to save the innings, knock on wood, our bullpen can, keep it up or shove or whatever they got to do to keep us in the game. But yeah, it'll be interesting because I don't know. I think I was looking at, I can't remember what the total was off the top of my head, which I know is great podcast content for you guys. But his innings last year between the minors and majors was up above the 100 range, I believe. I don't remember the exact number. So, at least he's got kind of a track record of doing that, within a season, whether it be two split levels or whatever. But, I think I don't know. It's to me, it's way too early to start thinking about kind of innings limits and when they should shut them down. But I think if they can just kind of be smart as far as when they're in games and not leaving them in past like 100 pitches or something in certain outings, like that'll go a long way. And then if they can even get creative with off days and things like that, that what they did with Singer this past week, where they can, not that you want to skip, I guess, Burns in your rotation, but if there is like a chance that they could do that, and maybe by the time that someone like Louder's back or whatever, maybe it won't hurt them as much. But I don't know. I think he's shown that he's just been really our ace of the season so far. Certainly, I think in the Cy Young conversation, it's still May, but it's just been awesome to see. And I think any way they can keep him healthy, like I'm all for it. And not necessarily healthy, but just like not fatigued too, I think will be huge.
Yeah, for sure. You were right. In 2025, between the minors and the majors, he had 66 innings in the minors, 43 innings in the majors for 109 innings, I believe that would be total. And so far in 2026, he's at 64 innings. So kind of getting there, more than halfway toward that 100. But again, I'm not exactly sure. It's going to be probably a case-by-case, day-by-day, outing-by-outing basis that they're going to make with him. And it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully he can hit like 120, maybe 150. That would be really kind of pushing it analytically wise, right? They don't want you to do a certain percentage amount more than they did the previous year type of thing. But I feel like they really didn't put him out there that much in 2025. Like, I mean, like you really think about it, in Chattanooga was his like main stop in the minors, and he pitched 42 innings there. Everywhere else in Dayton and Louisville, he only pitched 11 to 12 innings. So like it weren't like maybe 10, 12, 15 starts that he had in the minors. Like that's a really small sample size. And obviously he performed well enough to earn the promotion, and then was electric for the Reds in 2025. But it seemed like I guess don't fix something that ain't broke, because he's been the only guy that's gone out there that you feel confident that we're going to win. So, not to get too overly complicated, because that's what sometimes baseball organizations, coaches, pitching staffs can do. They can get a little bit too complicated. Like, hey, the guy's throwing well, keep throwing him out there. If he's not throwing well, okay, you take him out. Like that's like kind of the simple folksy type of logic that I think that Terry Francona probably kind of subscribes to. Like, hey, you're like, well, why are we going to get? I mean, he probably looks at his bullpen. He's like, I don't think those guys are better than Chase Burns. You know what I mean? That's probably how he goes through his thought process. Just saying. But yeah, I don't know. The last game of the series was the most concerning, because, like I said, it was very Cincinnati Reds in terms of just having a very, offense that was just so many guys left on base. I think, what was the number? Because I'm looking at it now. It was like over like 15 or 17 guys left on base, and they did not hit. The only guy that really did any damage, Blake Dunn, going 3 for 6. And we can shout out Blake Dunn a bit. He's been great when they put him in to the start of the lineup, or like in the middle of the lineup. He robbed a couple runs from the Braves in Saturday's game, I believe. So like he's been outstanding to put in there. Just maybe a TJ Friedl replacement out there in center, possibly. I think he started in center either today or the other day, but been playing really well right field. Like I don't know if you got any thoughts on Mr. Blake Dunn or the third game of the Mets series. You can go either way. But like I just wanted to shout out Blake Dunn for just being pretty good since they called him up a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of if he's playing center or right field, I think they've had him there a lot too. But I think he should definitely be, when he's playing, your leadoff guy. I mean, I think even that could just kind of make sense of regardless of where he's at defensively, in place of TJ Friedl, who's been our leadoff guy for a better part of the past few years. But I know I'm not like one of those guys that's like completely out on Friedl either. I think like he can be kind of the platoon type of left field or whatever we need him to be. But I think and especially in the leadoff spot, like Dunn's speed too is just huge. Like people always talk about how he can like pretty much run stride for stride with like Elly De La Cruz, which is just crazy to me. But I believe it. I mean, he's definitely fast. So I think, yeah, he's been a huge spark plug since he's really come up this year, and really kind of a turnaround from what we've seen from him in past years. So I think he, certainly getting better, and I hope they can kind of keep that, momentum going with him. That last game, I guess, in the Mints too. It's always tough if you're like not capitalizing on runners in scoring position. I was doing the Chatterbox show the off day with Greg over. He does Reds Daily, and he basically brought up the point like, hey, if they're at least getting runners in scoring position or left on base, like at least we have those guys on base. But yeah. I mean, you obviously hope they could be a little more clutch with it, but I do. I mean, in one game, I'm not going to get too, I guess, upset about it. I think that was also the game that Zach Maxwell pitched. I think like first guy out of the bullpen. So he's certainly struggled a little bit too, but not that it was all his fault or anything. But I think, you got kind of down performances from a lot of guys in the lineup that day, and then the bullpen necessarily didn't help either. It's just a bad kind of combination, and that's just how you lose games sometimes. But no, I mean, all in all, I think, it wasn't a terrible show, at least in the whole series.
Yeah, for sure. And you are right. This is like the first time, at least that I can recall, that they've had this type of offensive kind of, just no way to get the guys in. They're not hitting them over and hitting them in. That was a way more, frequent occurrence in past seasons, that it would be like, oh my goodness, bases loaded with 1 out or no outs, and they got nothing. So like,
classic.
If it happens like every 1 to 2 months, I guess you're right. I can live with that. Everybody kind of goes through that through their baseball season. Such, 162 games, you're going to have one of those days, one of those nights that you can't seem to put the other team away. It's just kind of a little bit. If it was against the Braves, I guess the context is better. We talked about how the Mets are down, and you just kind of want to like have that barometer of like, yeah, we're going to keep kicking the Mets because they're down, because their fans certainly do when they get after it. Yeah. Their fans are ruthless against their own team, and they let them know. So like, I don't know. It felt like we kind of gave them a game, maybe a little bit of confidence, but luckily, they're still the Mets. So there's that. But yeah, do you have any thoughts about the Mets series before we move it on?
No, I think we covered it pretty good.
Yeah, just want to try to make Frank the Tank a little bit more mad, I guess, is maybe what my thought.
That's always hilarious to me. Anytime Frank does like anything, it's hilarious. But when he can like throw in like I think it was the first game of the series, he's like super pissed about Lodolo being in there. He's like, he's the worst pitcher. He's got an 8 ERA, 8. So like, I don't know. I love that content. So I'm here for it. And then
yeah.
I feel like he's gonna eventually, he needs to watch his heart rate or something. But yeah, I'm here for it. Well, we can take some Reds wins out of it.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll move it on to something that gets our heart rate up, the Cincinnati Reds bullpen. And that has been kind of this whole month, more or less. I feel like I brought this up a couple shows ago or something like that. The April 25th game, the Hall of Fame induction game, where the Reds were on Fox, national television. They flashed that graphic up there. Cincinnati Reds bullpen, 2.45 ERA, best in the majors. And since that graphic, it's been everything but that. And it's just kind of been just like you said, the confidence thing of like, even today, you're just like, oh man, it's 6-3. Seems like it's enough for the lead. But then all of a sudden the bullpen gives a run away, gets it close. Got to have, Sam Mole come in, get the 27th out, which, like we talked about earlier in the show, to have Sam Mole have a 2.49 ERA and be one of the more consistent guys out of the bullpen. If you were saying this last year or 2 years ago, probably people would be looking at you weird and be like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. Yeah. But that's kind of the nature of bullpen arms, bullpens in general. Sometimes it goes up, it goes down. Sometimes a whole year they're up. Sometimes a whole year they're down. It can be very inconsistent stuff because these guys are coming in now with the new rules. So they have to face at least 3 guys. They got to come in and be able to perform and get outs, because if they don't, it's not like they could just get pulled after 1 at bat or just walking a guy or whatever. But anyway, point being is that this Red Legs bullpen has also been plagued by a bunch of injuries, just even this last couple days, right? Like we had Pierce Johnson, we had Graham Ashcraft. Like we're just trying to get bodies. We DFA'd Kyle Nicholas, a guy we traded Tyler Callahan for. So I don't know where you want to go with this, Austin, but like What are your takeaways from this month or the last couple of weeks of this Reds bullpen?
Yeah, I think I saw a similar stat like maybe a week ago where they're basically comparing April to May with the bullpen ERA, and it's like basically the Reds were close to being first, if not first, and now it's like last for the month of May. So I'm definitely glad that tomorrow is June 1st, I guess, and hopefully that changes the mojo a little bit. But I don't think that'll unfortunately be enough to just flip a switch. Because even like before the injuries, I mean, Pagan wasn't doing super great, in his closing appearances. Like he was a little shaky. So I think, he was better pitcher overall than he was pitching in those games, but now you don't have him at all. So everybody kind of gets bumped up a slot. You're relying on kind of Santillan to maybe be that closer. He hasn't really been able to take over that role. Sam Maul, yeah, to your point, I think has been probably the most reliable guy that they could go to in those situations. I think they're going to probably end up doing some type of like closer by committee stuff with, a mix of guys. And I guess it probably makes sense, at least in my mind too. But yeah, I mean, and to your point, really all the guys that they've tried to call up kind of in these injury situations or whatever, Luis May, Zach Maxwell, Marte the other night, it's like, you're just not getting those guys coming up that like have really shown that they're, ready to take over these roles. And I don't know. I think coming into this year, like I was pretty excited about the bullpen. Like I thought Pierce Johnson was a good signing. I thought, a lot of the guys that they had, kind of coming into the mix, maybe Phillips was showing some flashes early in the year too, but it seemed like they were maybe making the bullpen better, but it's really just been a weak spot, certainly in this past month. But I guess the grain of salt with that is at least, in the month of April, they did show signs that they could be pretty good. So maybe it's there, but they just need to find consistency with it because I don't know. I think even with, Pagan eventually coming back or, Santillan getting things right and kind of the other Pierce Johnson, I think he's going to try to get like an injection maybe and come back. Kind of same thing with Ashcraft. Like there's question marks about availability, but then even with the guys being available, like you don't know necessarily that these guys are going to be able to, lead you deep into the playoffs type of scenarios, which could definitely be frustrating for them down the road.
Yeah, for sure. It's been rough because, like you said, the 2 months back to back have been polar opposites in the performance, and maybe there's injuries that contribute to poor performances and what have you. Yeah, there hasn't been a real, guy that has taken over since Pagan has been out. Big Tone has not necessarily filled up to it. Connor Phillips is down in Triple-A, kind of trying to figure out his control, trying not to walk as many guys. And that's the other aspect, is that it just feels like a bunch of these guys have lost a little bit of their control because they've been walking so many guys. And this last week or so, it's been getting a little bit better. Maybe they're starting to come back and get back on track and what have you. For that, the saddest one, I guess, for me has been the fact that they traded Tyler Callahan, a guy that I really like going into this year, thought he could get major league at bats, and now has actually been called up by the Pittsburgh Pirates and not playing every week, I think. Yeah, not playing every single day, but Kyle Nicholas DFA'd. I mean, if that guy's not even good enough to make this bullpen, then that should tell you how good he is in the eyes and the way the Reds are evaluating him, right? I thought they would just stash him in Triple-A for a long time, unless maybe he was asking for an opt-out. Maybe he was asking for a DFA, like a bit Jake Fraley situation, because maybe Nicholas thought he could, apply his trade somewhere else. But when he was up, he was not great. His control was hit and miss. He had a couple outings where he just got blown up, and in Triple-A it wasn't it was more kind of the same, very up and down and consistent. So that's been kind of really disappointing. Then they also trade Reese Hines for a lifelong minor leaguer, Zach McCambley. So like maybe he can come out and eat some innings coming up. He's looked pretty good so far in what I've seen at Triple-A Louisville, and overall for his minor league stats this season, he's like a 2.3, 2.45 ERA in the minors. So maybe, but they'd have to make room on the 40-man for him and stuff like that. Zach Maxwell and you brought up earlier, and Luis May have not been it. Those guys are on the 40-man, and they've been getting their chances and whatnot. I'm not saying we need to give up on them. They're guys that definitely have the stuff, but they just haven't been able to get the ball over the plate consistently and get out. So the bullpen, which Ricky and I always praise Tito having a great sense on how to deploy his bullpen, has been quite the opposite this month. Hopefully the month of June is going to go totally back closer to what we saw in April, because man, it's like you said, the heart rate stuff is you're starting to really like pull your hair out as a Reds fan anytime that you see the bullpen come in with a 1 or 2 or 3 run lead, it's like, oh man, this could evaporate quickly. It's, the PTSD of old Reds teams that, and I think Ricky and I were talking about this, the 2021 team who was super talented and all that, their Achilles heel was the bullpen. So I'm not saying this is the 2021 team all over again, but it's definitely a situation where we got to find some consistency. And maybe that guy is Sam Moll. Maybe we doubted him long enough. Maybe he's going to come in and be that guy coming out, first guy out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and I overall, I remember when we signed Mull, probably like 3 years ago at this point. I remember thinking that was a pretty solid pickup, and I think he's more of a lefty specialist at that point. Now they're kind of having to use him regardless. But I think overall he does have the track record, minus a pretty bad last year of being a solid kind of dependable reliever. So I think he could definitely have a big role in this team. I think the Ashcraft injury is actually a lot bigger than I hear people talking about it, because I thought he was having a pretty good solid year, honestly. And the injury kind of came out of nowhere, at least to me. Like, I kind of caught me by surprise of, that being the case with him. So that, I think that's going to end up being a huge blow. And, knock on wood, he got like a second opinion, I guess. Initially, they thought he was pretty much going to be shut down long term. And now I'm hearing he's going to try to get some like injections and rescans and things like that. So I still don't think it's going to be anything super quick, kind of regardless, as far as him coming back. But that's kind of a key, I think, role of the bullpen that we'd end up missing for probably a long period of time. And then really the only other guy that I can think that's kind of showing consistent success that's at least in there now is Burke. Like, I know he gave up a run, I think, yesterday, but I think he's been pretty solid overall. So I don't know. I think they got kind of like a hodgepodge of guys that they're throwing in at random situations too. I know a lot of people got on Tito for the Marte decision the other night of, bringing him in, and the game just kind of busted wide open from there. But, and I don't know, that didn't bother me, I guess, as some people did, but, they're already losing the game at that point. So I think it seems like Tito and managers in general kind of play it differently of whether or not you're just winning or losing. And then, you got kind of like an A and a B team that comes in kind of depending on the situation. But I don't know. They're going to have find some consistency, though, because, to your point, and I think we've touched on it both now, it's like any of the guys they've been calling up, it's just, it doesn't seem like they got a whole lot of great options, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate, truth of it, is that we're kind of running out of arms, but we don't know where to turn to. Ashcraft was another guy that we thought that could be a potential closer down the road, a guy that could maybe take over for Pagan after Pagan's time is done here or what have you, or in the meantime while he's injured. But that's not the case either. So unfortunately, we're going to have to look for possibly guys to trade for in the trade market, or try to take a flyer on some guys that maybe get DFA'd from other clubs. It's going to be interesting because there are some arms in Triple-A that could be there. Like I said, Zach McCambley that got called up. Our guy Trevor Kunsel has been pitching pretty well down there. Trying to think of some other guys. You got Connor Phillips, Triple-A as well. Maybe he can sort it out, and he's got closer stuff too. So like it could be a situation, like you said, closer by committee. Just whoever's hot, whoever's arm is fresh, and maybe they'll piece it together until, I don't know, what's the timetable on Pagan? I feel like he's been gone for over 2 weeks because that Cubs series is at the beginning of the month, right?
Yeah, I can't remember what the exact time frame was. I want to say like a month they expected him to be out, but I could be wrong on that. It wasn't anything super like season ending, but it also wasn't anything too timely to return, I didn't think either. But yeah, that's it, because like, you kind of touched on it. I think if they can at least get some of these guys that have good stuff, like I feel like they got a lot of guys with good, quote unquote stuff, Phillips being one, but they just can't throw strikes. So if they can at least get their command, where it needs to be, I think, they've got hit and miss stuff, or swing and miss stuff, I should say. But they don't necessarily, do it on a consistent enough basis, which is tough.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we're also depending on a super veteran TJ Antone, 3-time,
True.
Tommy John.
Bad. I don't know. Yeah.
No, but the fact we have to depend on him is kind of the aspect I'm going for. It. I'm happy that he's up at the club. I'm happy that he's healthy, because last time I saw him pitch, he literally got pulled before even, I think, threw an official pitch. It was in the warm up. So like he's still there. he's the healthiest of all these guys somehow. So, but yeah, it's good to
And
see
I
him
don't
there.
like they mentioned this during the broadcast today, and I don't know if you know much about it either, but they were basically saying that June 1st is kind of a key date for guys that can opt out of deals if they're stuck in the minors, with a team that they don't want to be in it or whatever. And I honestly didn't know much about that, so sorry to set you up if you don't either. But it'll be interesting to see if basically guys that are in Triple-A due to like log jams on their current rosters and things like that, if they come available and the Reds could pick up. I don't know anybody top of mind that would fit that description, but it would just be interesting if there's suddenly maybe an influx of some free agent availability that we didn't necessarily know about. And granted, it'd probably end up being a pickup, kind of the equivalent of like Paddock to our starting rotation, where maybe it's a guy that's not doing great, but at least has some major league experience, and that could be a route that they go, I guess, in the near term.
Yeah, that could be the reason why Kyle Nicholas is no longer with the club
Sure.
as well. He might want to test his abilities elsewhere. But yeah, it definitely a guy with major league experience wouldn't hurt at this rate, because we're getting guys out there that, just need to get the job done one way or the other. But talk about a job. The job of the union versus the owners has come up already. I know we've had that ominous date of December 2nd, 2026 being the day that the CBA will have expired, and that baseball will have no collective bargaining agreement between the players union and the owners. So now is the time where we're going to start getting media leaks. We're going to get people putting out their statements and the reactions, and all the talking heads are going to be discussing it. But there were some proposals out there, publicly put out proposals by the union and the owners for the CBA. Some decent ideas of what both are thinking at the very least, in terms of, I think the owners proposed a salary cap and a salary floor, while the players union had put out proposals to help with update the minimum salary for each player on the roster and what have you. So I don't know how much you got into it. This is, I feel like, just step one of a very long process that we're going to be going through. We're going to be seeing a lot of different little things that come out here and there. But what were your first takeaways from the CBA talks?
Yeah, I've been following it a decent amount because I think I probably approach it from a biased Reds fan point of view, that I just hate seeing like the Dodgers and teams like that, just spend out of the, what, and just put these payrolls out that are like triple what the Reds have and things like that. And the Mets obviously too, to some extent. But yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Like the two proposals, the players union put out one where they basically called it, I think it was like a competitive integrity tax or something like that, which basically, if teams don't spend above a certain amount, they end up having to basically forfeit some of their revenue sharing money that they were getting, which in essence acts like a floor, I guess. And the number that I saw for that, at least I think it was like a Jeff Passan tweet. It was basically 150 for like 150 million for the floor, and then basically the MLB owners put out a proposal for their floor that was like 170, and those numbers look off, but I guess the difference of about 20 million, it includes kind of like performance incentives and things like that, if I want to say that's correct. So the numbers were actually, if you take 150 plus 20, you get a 170, which is where the kind of the players were at. And then if you get the 170 that the owners are putting out, they're basically at the same number for the floor, I guess is what I'm long-winded in trying to say. So at least there seems to be some, I don't know, agreement of like what that should look like as far as like the minimum team should be spending. I know the sticking point with the union is probably going to be the cap, because they've pretty much been against that like for the past 10 years, it seems like. But I don't know. I think in terms of like just baseball in general being competitive and balanced, I think like you have to have some sort of at least a more aggressive cap of like what they have now, because it seems like teams just like do not care if they get the luxury tax now, and they're willing to kind of pay that fee just to still have ridiculous payroll. So I don't know. I think big picture, like they do need to have like a window, I think, of like where teams can spend and like have that be a lot closer than it is now. But the bright spot that I took out is like they at least kind of seem to agree on the floor part. It's just going to be the cap part of it. But I don't know if you saw much else on it other than that.
Yeah, I saw a bit, and yeah, saw the salary cap, salary floor stuff, and like I said, I think that's probably what they're putting out now. Who knows what they end up deciding on later? So we're gonna follow that journey all the way through. But yeah, I saw that the difference of the 20 million was like arbitration bonuses, performance bonuses, all this kind of stuff that sometimes isn't counted against the cap, but the owners put that in there because they wanted to make sure that they were, I guess, accounting for everything. The one thing that I remember seeing and hearing was they're going to pool together the revenue for television deals. And that is, to me, I think, a huge deal because that's what they do in the NFL. That's what they do. And the NFL is the model, obviously, for all these sports leagues that are second, third, fourth, fifth compared to the NFL. Having the NFL be king and all that is basically one way that the Dodgers are super competitive is because their television deal is like huge. It's a 60 million or something like that. But like what ends up happening is that the tax on their revenue deal or their television deal is super low because when they did the accounting for it back in 2020, it was at a time where like they were selling the team. The previous owner was like bankrupt. So like they had like this really small taxation rate on their television deal. But if we're going to talk about like the Yes Network, the Spectrum Network in LA, all that money that's going to be for television revenue from the TV contracts of these major big market teams, if they're going to get all pulled together and distributed more fairly, that to me is a big deal. Now, is it going to be the same amount of money that the Bengals get in their pooled, television revenue deal? No, not necessarily, but it's still more step in the right direction where we're not going to have these big markets be making a lot of money on their television contracts and not sharing it with the rest of the league. I think that I can't believe the owners agreed to that because I feel like the big market teams would be like, I'm not going to share more than I have to. So that was the biggest takeaway for me. The floor stuff and the salary cap stuff, man, that's going to be fought and it's going to be ugly. But if the owners are willing to put out a proposal where they're going to have their television deals be pulled together a lot more and distributed a lot more to the smaller markets, that could help the Cincinnati Reds go from the 130 million that I think that they're at more or less now to the 170, I feel, because then Broccoli Bob doesn't have to spend his money. He can spend the TV money that he gets on, a free agent or a pitcher or whomever, right? That's basically what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think I saw kind of going off of that, they're splitting up the TV money more kind of fairly, so to speak. But then I think like kind of the offset probably was they're basically letting teams that have high attendance keep more of their ticket gate revenue, I guess. So like, LA, New York, those guys probably get, pretty consistent attendance. The Chicago Cubs come to mind too. So I guess they'd probably keep more of that money than what they're usually keeping, I guess, in terms of percentage. And then it maybe offsets with the TV stuff. But yeah, and especially it seems like like half or over half of like the teams now just have their TV going directly through MLB. And then like you got these weird teams that basically all the big markets have their own networks because they can, command the probably money from it. But that just seems kind of silly to me too, because yeah, you bring up like the NFL, the NBA, like I guess the NBA deals more with like regional networks more than like the NFL does, obviously, but it's just it's kind of screwy when you got teams that are basically kind of running their entire like business on their own versus within the league's parameters. And you would think that there has to be some more kind of fairness found in that. So yeah, I think to your point earlier too, like this is definitely probably like step one in the negotiation. I'm sure these numbers will change, drastically over the next, 6 months or whatever. But I don't know. The thing that was nice for me, and I was actually even looking it up before our show today, I was like trying to see like, have there ever been like any, or I guess not ever, but like in the past week after the owners put out their proposal, I was looking for like a quote from like, I know it's not Tony Clark anymore, but like whoever's leading like the players union. I was trying to see if anybody on that side was like, oh, like we're not close at all, blah, blah. Cause it always seems like whenever the MLB owners put out a, statement, you see like a strong rebuttal from the players union, basically saying like, we're not even close. They better be prepared for a lockout, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I didn't see any like negative stuff, at least headline wise so far, which I don't know, is at least good. But I think to your point, like this stuff doesn't even have to start kind of being discussed in an official way until like December. So long way to go, but I don't know. I think they need to figure it out. Like I know the union is just against like a cap in general, but I think if you can at least probably appease them with like forcing teams to at least spend more, you could find maybe a sweet spot in there some way.
Funny you mentioned that the guy that's stepping in for Tony Clark, because he unceremoniously had to step away, is his deputy, Bruce Meyer. And he did send something out 2 days ago, and I'll just get this snippet. The owners responded today with a demand for a salary cap system, something generations of players have fought against. The last time the owners made such an explicit push for a cap, over 30 years ago, it led to the longest work stoppage in MLB history. For generations, our members have fought against the cap systems because they harm players of all levels, erode or eliminate contractual guarantees, pit player against player, lead to more work stoppages, not less, and get worse for players over time. Caps don't lower ticket prices for fans, eliminate tanking, or ensure teams are run with equal competence. They suffocate competition by offering owners an all-purpose excuse for inaction and mediocrity. I feel like it's a little pointed at the Castellinis. I don't know. That's all I'm hearing.
I didn't see that headline. I guess I don't know. I blame AI. It didn't come from my search when I was looking for it. But no, I mean that seems like typical like response though. Whenever I hear like the cap being brought up, so like I don't know. My response to that, not that he's negotiating with me, would be like, look at all these other sports leagues that have seemingly figured it out. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's got to have that perspective. Like if he's representing the players, I feel like to some extent, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's a bit overstated because I think baseball is still the most work stoppage type of sport compared to like NFL or basketball, or whomever, right? The major sports. So, but yeah, he has to say it. It's kind of one of those things. So, any other thoughts about the CBA?
Nah, not at this point. But yeah, I'll definitely be following it because I think as a small market team, like the implications on us, like Reds fans, I think is going to be kind of big. So it'll be interesting.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about some real baseball, and we're going to talk about our guy, Red Hot Red of the Week. This guy had a great week, and feel free if you got some other nominees to shout out while we go through this. But this guy basically has been on fire since he got called up from Triple-A in late April, and has just continued to hit. He's now our number 3 hole hitter behind Elly De La Cruz. And I think that works out well because Elly runs well and he can go first to home, obviously, hopefully no injury. So he can continue to do that the rest of 2026. But JJ Bleday has been absolutely awesome for this team. This week, he went 10 for 24, 3 homers, 2 doubles, 6 RBIs, hitting .416 for the week there, Austin. I don't know. I can't say enough about this guy. He's been a guy that's hitting lefties and righties and as an outfielder. Like, is this guy a Cincinnati Red or am I? It feels like we haven't had an outfielder like this in a long, long time. And I know this is still kind of a short sample size. He's only played a little bit over a month, but you got to think that this is not a fluke because this guy's 27, 28. It's not his first time in the league playing for a team. So I feel like this is a bit sustainable. What are your thoughts on JJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think this definitely has to be the pick for the Red Hot Red of the Week. I was trying to think of other guys that have kind of had a good, recent go of it. And like Spencer Steer comes to mind, but just comparing their stats, like Bleday's got a better average, 345 versus 280. Slugging, he's got a slugging percentage of 724 versus Steer's 360. So while they both had pretty good weeks, I think just the slugging aspect of it kind of puts it over the edge for me for Bleday. And especially against this Braves series, he had the home runs in the first 2 games, and then I think a couple doubles today. So definitely, I think it's got to be kind of the consensus pick. And I do like him batting higher in the lineup today. I think, especially as Sal Stewart hasn't necessarily been struggling a lot, but he's kind of regressed from how he started at the beginning of the year. Like keep him, Bleday, and kind of hire the 3 spot, so to speak, in the lineup, and kind of ride this out while we can. Like, does he do this all year? I don't know, but I think it's finally a pick that the front office got right in the offseason, and I'm liking it a lot.
Yeah. Shout out Nick Kroll. Yeah, a guy that the Athletics, Sacramento Athletics DFA'd or whatever, and end up picking him off the free agency wire. I believe this offseason has been a great addition. I did. You pointed out Lodolo having a pretty decent week, and I looked at his stats, and he had, for Lodolo coming off the injury and all that, 2 wins on the day or on the week. 2 of the 3 wins for the Cincinnati Reds were his. That's pretty nice. We could say Chase Burns every week, more or less, based on how he just gives us a chance to win anytime he takes the ball. But yeah, those would be my other honorable mentions.
Yeah, do you guys usually go with hitters though? I feel like I mean, I don't know, red hot. Like I'm thinking of hitting, so I don't know. But yeah, those guys have definitely been awesome too.
I think we went Chase Burns last week because Chase Burns had
Okay.
like an electric 7 innings and eight strikeouts like he usually does, and I think also is maybe a couple weeks ago he had like a pretty good outing. I can't remember exactly, but it has been a good month. Austin, I don't know if you know about these Reds. They had such a great April that May hasn't been chock full of nominees all the time, but yeah, there's been some decent performances this week, which is encouraging going into the new month. Hopefully we will get off on the right foot as opposed to how we did last month. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see coming up. Any other thoughts about? I learned his initials. It's Jeffrey Joseph Blade, by the way. So
I did
if
not
we ever
know,
want
but no.
if we ever want to shout out, like Terry Lee Friedel type of situation, we can go with
Yeah,
that.
no, good. No, I mean, I'm thinking, I'm trying to think of like other JJs. We had JJ Hoover in the past. Like, I don't know what those stood for either, but that's the only one I could think. But it's always interesting with those guys that have like, the abbreviated names or whatever it is, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna look up JJ Hoover's initials as you were talking.
Oh yeah.
James Allen Hoover. So he must be a James Jr., kind of like TJ, is my guess.
Okay.
So it's just a guess thrown out there. I don't know, but I think JJ Hoover, doesn't he have like a card collecting company or something like that?
I heard that he's got like a shop in like northern Kentucky, and he does like card openings and stuff for like Pokemon cards, that type of stuff. I think I heard that on like a Jim Day podcast or something. But yeah.
No, I've seen him come around for some different things. Reds Fest, I believe, is one of them that he comes around and has his booth or what have you. So yeah, he's still part of the tri-state community, which is great to see.
Reds Nation.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we'll look forward now to our next couple series. We got the Kansas City Royals, who unfortunately we're not going to see Mr. Jonathan India because I believe he's out for the year with an injury. But yeah, I believe we also have who else is on that team? There was another Kansas City Red out there. But also we finish off the week in St. Louis, which is always kind of a tough place to play. We usually don't play particularly well in St. Louis, no matter how the Cardinals are playing for some reason. But yeah, what are your first initial thoughts about the upcoming week for your Cincinnati Redlegs?
Yeah, I kind of look at the series against the Royals kind of as we were looking at the Mets series. It's like a team that's sub 500 that you kind of need to do some damage against. But it'll be interesting because I think tomorrow's pitching matchup. I know we got Burns going for the Reds. I'm pretty sure they're opening with an opener I saw for Kansas City. So I feel like, and there's maybe stats that negate this, but I feel like anytime a team's opening with an opener, it means like they don't have really many great options at all, and they just kind of got to throw somebody in there to start 3 innings or whatever. So I don't know. I think if they can get it outing from Burns tomorrow, and that resembles kind of the starts he's had all year, I think that'll put them in a good spot regardless of who's pitching. But I kind of look at tomorrow as really a chance to easily get off on the right foot if they can, and just take advantage of kind of a subpar roster, so to speak. Not that ours is gangbusters or anything, but I think we could at least outperform the Royals. And then I think they leverage that of kind of playing one of those rivals, Kansas City and St. Louis, and they play St. Louis after that. So I don't know. It seems like at least the anytime we play like anybody that's in the division, it just doesn't go super well at all. So hopefully they can turn that around. But at least I got some optimism, I guess, going into the Royals side of things.
Yeah, I don't follow the Royals that closely, but they're 15 games under 500, 22-37. So another kind of New York Mets situation going into a series where you feel confident. You're at home as well with a Chase Burns being one of the 3 starts. 2 out of 3 is a must. If they only win 1 out of the 3 against these Royals, that's going to be a bit disappointing. It's not necessarily a situation that the Royals don't look like they're playing their best baseball. So you got to kind of take advantage of what you got in front of you. You got starting tomorrow, a Monday game, and then a Tuesday game, 3-2-1 Tuesday. And then I think the Wednesday game also is now a 7-10 start. So 3 straight night games at home. The weather should be great. I looked this week. I think Abbott's also another one of those starts. So it feels like 2 out of 3 is a must for me. And hopefully we'll get good news about Elly tomorrow. figure out what his situation is going to be playing wise. But I feel good going into this week. It's good that we're playing against a team that's not on top of their game at the moment. And Chris Paddock does the third start. So Chris Paddock 0-7 on the season. Maybe this is his first W for the year.
He's due, right?
He's due. Yeah, exactly. He's due for at least one. But yeah, I agree with you on the St. Louis Cardinals aspect of it as well, that they're 2-10 against the division. So I like to think water will find its level, but it has to be at least one out of those three. You know what I mean? 3 out of 3, 3 wins, 3 losses this coming week. I don't like it. It's not great, but it'd be better than, getting swept by the Cardinals in St. Louis. And, hopefully we're in a situation where we're not, maybe it's 4-2, maybe take 2 out of 3 and 2 out of 3. That'd be, I think, most optimistic situation going forward for these Red Legs.
Yeah, I agree. And I think really with Kansas City, kind of the only guy that sticks out that's probably going to end up being a pain in the tail is Bobby Witt Jr. But I mean, I think, every team essentially has trouble with him. So that's not going to be exclusive to the Reds or anything like that. But definitely, an all-star caliber player. I totally I remember hearing that India was hurt, but I totally forgot about that going into it. So that does stink. You're not going to see him. But I think he was kind of struggling from what I remember even before that too. But yeah, shout out Jonathan India.
Yeah. And, we talk about on this podcast that we definitely won the trade with that. Singer struggling kind of
changing.
Yeah. But I'm not sure that there was whisperings, before they went into arbitration talks with, all the teams went into arbitration with their team, their players that are arbitration eligible. There was whispers that Jonathan India would not get a offer, that they would basically decline his arbitration and he'd be a free agent. But that was just rumors and all that. They ended up picking it up for, I think, $8 million or something like that, which is, in retrospect, a lot of money for a guy that's not going to be playing for the rest of the year. But, hopefully he recovers well and gets back to it. I'd hate for him to go out on a whimper for his Kansas City Royals career. But, it happens. Baseball happens sometimes. But, yeah, definitely want to beat those dirty Redbirds, man. That we could have lost that series. Luckily it got rained out, right. Last week. That would have been, a little bit more salt in the wound for how the Reds have been playing against the division. But hopefully we can give them a little bit of taste of their own medicine and take 2 out of 3 for them, because they're second in the division. I want to say they're still playing decent baseball, and that's scary because they were not, I don't think, expected to play this well this year.
Yeah, I was just looking at the standings. Obviously, Milwaukee's in first. I guess the Cubs beat them yesterday. They're playing the Cardinals.
Tonight.
So, yeah, Cubs are in second by a half a game, but they're actually playing right now, too. So that could change by the end of Sunday, essentially.
Yeah. That'll be nice. I don't know if I want either of those teams to win. Maybe they can somehow both lose. That'd be great.
Right.
But, yeah. Anything else you got on this upcoming series?
No, nothing on the upcoming series. I think just looking to keep kind of the momentum coming at it today. It's crazy for all the kind of struggles we've talked about this team has had. Just looking at the standings again, they find themselves one game out of the wild card, and they're last in the Central, but still only 6 games out of that with months to play. So that's definitely going to change too. But I don't know. I think if you can just kind of pile them together, series wins, even if it's not a sweep, that'll go a long way. But especially when you're facing somebody like the Royals, like, if you can go for the sweep, like, do it, just because, all wins count. So I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to joke on the show a lot that the Reds' favorite month of the year is June. In the last couple Junes, they've won 15 games, 14 games, and then 2023, they won that magical 18 games.
That was awesome. Yeah. That was like my best month as a Reds fan. I feel like that June of that year, but yeah.
That 12-game winning streak, it made a lot of Reds fans it made me buy back in a lot more, for sure, that month, for sure. That Elly, McLean, Joey Votto making an appearance.
Yeah.
That was a good month. But hopefully we can have a repeat of that. 18 wins. I think we'd be right back on track for the division if we can do that. So fingers crossed.
Just asking for a good 12-game win streak. No big deal. Come on now.
Yeah. It's not that big. Yeah. I mean, look at the Cubs. They have like a 10-game winning streak, 10-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Let's not do that part of it, but we'll do the 10-game winning streak part of it for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, all right, Austin. I really appreciate you coming on, subbing in, super sub here for us on especially a winning Sunday. We'll have to maybe bring him back, more on. I feel like last time you were on, did they win that day too? I want to say I can't remember it.
I can't remember, but maybe I like to say they did because I was going to be on the show. But yeah,
2-0. We'll keep that going. Hopefully, we bring it back on again and they'll win again. So,
anytime.
I guess until next time. Go Reds.